Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Well, all the damage from storms across Windsor, Essex comes at a cost, and you may end up seeing it on your utility bill. We have more on that. Plus, we share with you the latest on auto talks as Unifor selects its strike target to set the pattern contract agreement. And birders are flocking to catch a glimpse of a species rarely seen here in Canada. And it's not just the bird who's traveled a long way, but photographers too. Utility companies in the area say it's been an expensive year, especially after recent tornadoes and rainstorms. As Chris Ensing reports, those costs might make their way to your bill.
There's still small scenes of the damage after those tornadoes whipped through Windsor, Essex that you can spot around the area. The utility pole there, the trees piling up, the caution tape, but it's not all that's piling up. The bills are starting to add up as well. It's been a bad summer, but it all starts with a wicked winter. In February, an ice storm that cut power to 80,000 people across Windsor, Essex and Chatham, Kent. NWIN calling it their most damaging storm in 20 years. In Essex, people went multiple days without power. Utility companies are still adding up the costs of a July storm when monster-sized hail fell from above, massive trees toppling to their sides. And now at least 2 tornadoes touching down in Windsor, and Tecumseh cleanup efforts underway. The bills adding up.
Well, certainly this has been an expensive year for us with storm repairs. There's no doubt about that.
NWIN storm damage so far this year estimated at more than $1 million. Part of that is from the timing of these storms hitting at night, requiring staff to bring power back online on overtime pay. NWIN isn't looking to recover what it calls significant storm costs from ratepayers just yet. That decision depends on a calm end to the year. But a new charge could be coming to Essex County customer power bills. ELK Energy is applying for a special rate rider with the Ontario Energy Board to help deal with $100,000 in damage following that ice storm. The power company wants another $4 from customers each month to pay for better switches to isolate power outages, new poles, and preventative tree maintenance. There have been 7 of those applications to the Ontario Energy Board since 2018. A report that was created for that board that was released this summer is warning that there are going to be more extreme weather events that happen frequently because of the changing climate. And in that report prepared for Ontario's energy distributors, there's a warning that it's going to be cheaper to plan for that future than react to the disaster. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor Regional Hospital is reporting a COVID-19 outbreak at its Olette campus. The outbreak is on the hospital's 7th floor medical unit. Hospital officials say 8 patients were symptomatic. Another 2 tested positive after being exposed. Staff in that unit have been mandated to now wear a mask. Visitors are also asked to mask up and may be required to wear a gown. The outbreak at Windsor Regional Hospital comes as experts warn there are early signs Canada is entering a fall wave of COVID-19. Updated vaccines targeting new strains of the virus are still weeks away. Ahead of the start of school, Ontario's education minister is saying parents must be fully involved in their child's decision to use a different pronoun at school. Minister Lecce made this comment yesterday at a press conference.
Important to note that every school must be safe for every child. I think we understand, though, that parents, must be fully involved and fully aware of what's happening in the life of their children. I mean, often there are health implications, and I think we have to respect the rights of parents, recognizing that these can be life-changing decisions. And I think parents want to be involved so that they can support their kids.
Well, here in Windsor, there have been heated protests with some supporting and others opposing the school board's policy on gender identity. The public and Catholic school board's gender expression policy allows students at any age to use a different name, gender, or pronoun at school without the need to inform parents. The group Parents for Parents' Rights in Windsor says they wish the minister would have gone further, enacting legislation, while the Catholic School Board says it believes its policy is the right one.
What I'm really hoping is all school boards across Ontario reflect on this and maybe open up some ad hoc committees with some parents. And let's make a policy that fits all families and all children.
Well, unless they come back and legislate it or something, then we will continue to do that because number one is a student's safety and security. And we have to acknowledge that and make sure that that's in place.
The Catholic School Board says they would like to see parents involved and say school staff has room to use their professional judgment in navigating the situation. The minister's comments come as Saskatchewan adopts a new gender and pronoun policy. They join New Brunswick in legislating parental consent for students under the age of 16 who want to change their given names or pronouns at school. Well, artificial intelligence is making its way into local schools. Teachers are using the technology to help prepare classroom lessons, but they're also learning how to identify student assignments that may have been written by AI.
It's not always just about cheating and purposeful use to mislead or to use someone else's content. So that's a big one that we're trying to get across, is just making students aware of how to use it properly. So if we can have our teachers use ChatGPT to save time, be more efficient, maybe come up with brainstorming and ideas and use it to meet those expectations of our students and the needs of our course, then we are 100% behind it. We just need it to be properly vetted.
He also says it's important students are aware how to properly source information from apps like ChatGPT, and for teachers to know their students' writing style so they can better spot when outside tools are being used for assignments. Well, Unifor has set its sights on Ford as the target for 2023 contract talks. The deal Unifor reaches with Ford will set the pattern for the other two Detroit automakers. Dale Molnar has the details.
I've concluded that the best opportunity for our union's 18,000 members in the auto sector to achieve our bargaining objectives is with Ford Motor Company.
Unifor President Lana Payne made the announcement in Toronto, flanked by the chairs of the bargaining committees for GM, Stellantis and Ford. She says she feels they have a strong bargaining position with Ford, partly because of the cooperation she has experienced with the company over the past few months.
I was encouraged by Ford Motor Company's transparency with our union on product programs and business plans.
She says progress has already been made at the subcommittee levels. Unifor Local 200 President John Dagnolo is the chair of the Ford Bargaining Committee. He was pleased to be chosen to go first.
We have a great team led by Lana and the national staff, Brother Shane Wark, and I can't wait to get at it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Over the weekend, Unifor workers voted overwhelmingly in favor of strike action. They joined their U.S. counterparts who have also voted in favor. One auto analyst says if the UAW strikes at all three of the Detroit automakers, it will cost $5.6 billion U.S. and affect us here in Canada.
It's a lot of money on the table. It's of serious interest to people who are in Ontario and Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and it is something that won't stay on one side of the border, by the way. We've added it up here for the United States, but this will go across the border.
Automotive journalist Kay Lane wasn't surprised by the announcement, but says a strike in the U.S. could undermine the leverage Unifor has in Canada if Ford is out anyway.
A little bit, yes, because if UAW goes down and across the river goes down, here shuts down as well. So I can see Ford thinking, let's nip this in the bud and let's go for it. But they're not going to make any old deal because they've got time.
We'll cross the bridge of whether or not there's going to be a strike in the U.S. If there is a strike in the U.S., and it's a little early to tell yet, they've got a lot of bargaining days left ahead of them. And obviously we're focused on getting our own agreement here, and we have our own strategy.
Payne says she feels confident they will reach an agreement with Ford without a strike, but they always bargain to deadline. Bargaining teams from GM and Stellantis will now go home to await a deal with Ford. Then the union will go after the same deal with those automakers when they resume talks. The strike deadline is September 18th. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The Ford government says it may return some land to the Greenbelt after a developer tried to sell it. It's the latest twist in the Greenbelt story after the scathing Auditor General's report almost 3 weeks ago. She found developers that benefited from the land swap could see land values skyrocket by more than $8 billion. Lorenda Redekop has the latest.
The piece of land was last sold in 2018. for close to $16 million, less than 2 weeks after the Ford government first came to power. Property records list the owner as a numbered company, with a representative saying it's an investor in China. In a statement today, Premier Doug Ford says the government learned the developer was trying to sell the land, something that was never disclosed, saying this behavior goes against everything our government is doing to bring home ownership into reach for more people, and that it's exploring every option available to us, including immediately starting the process to put these sites back into the Greenbelt.
Right now it's being farmed and it should continue to be farmed. We've had way too much development, and the development has all been big, huge houses that are unaffordable.
The founder of a local environmental group isn't surprised by a developer trying to resell.
I think speculation has been a big part of the land scoops all over the place, but especially here because we're close to the 401 corridor and because we're not far from Toronto.
This is the land in question. Kingston Road in Ajax is just that way. Highway 401 is in that direction. According to the Auditor General's report, it's 133 acres in total, all of it prime agricultural land. Today, the opposition party launched a new campaign and website repeating the call for the housing minister to resign. His chief of staff stepped down. The Auditor General said he was connected to developers who benefited from the Greenbelt decision.
None of this is about housing. It's never been about housing, and it has always and will always be about just enriching a few very well-connected, ultra-wealthy developers.
The Liberal Party refers to this latest move by the government as trying to hide the tip of the iceberg. Over the weekend, the Toronto Star reported on other land that was part of the Greenbelt deal that already sold. The Premier had a message for other developers benefiting from his government's land swap that they need to build, saying, "You're on notice. If you don't meet our government's conditions, including showing real progress by year end, your land will go back into the Greenbelt." The opposition wants the legislature immediately recalled, so the land in Ajax will once again be protected. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Ajax.
Hurricane Idalia is moving across the Gulf of Mexico toward Florida. It continues to build strength, hitting the Cayman Islands and Cuba as the state braces for one of the most severe storms to hit the Gulf Coast in more than a century. Nearly 50 counties have been placed under states of emergency. CBC's Sarah Levitt has the latest.
This is expected to be a big one. The National Hurricane Center has classified this as an extremely dangerous major hurricane. Most of the state's counties are under state of emergencies, some with mandatory evacuations in place. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis urging residents in Idalia's expected path to be prepared and to leave ahead of time.
Where it's scheduled to hit along this big bend, and we've not really had a hurricane strike this area for a long, long time. I think you got to go back to the 1800s before you would see a path like this. And so those coastal areas there, have not necessarily been through this before.
Some areas, though, went through this a year ago. Hurricane Ian killed 161 people and caused $109 billion in damage. Some places and people are still trying to recover from that storm. People like Lisa Lavoie, who left her home in a panic as Ian hit, wading through waist-high water. Her home was destroyed.
The hardest part, I think, for us has been that it's not about what we lost personally, just the two of us or our family. It's about the massive level of destruction. My advice to anybody is, always better to be over-prepared than under-prepared.
Idalia itself is a concern, but so is the storm surge it may create. Walls of water higher than 3.5 meters could hit the coasts. So, as this hurricane heads to Florida, there's a lot of preparation and a whole lot of worry. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Washington.
A University of Windsor co-op student has been recognized for her work to help with food security in Canada's far north. Sabrina Sawan received the Rising Star Student Award. The electrical engineering student helped out on a project that built a vertical farm inside a shipping container. The project was worked on at the Harrow Research Station, and it's supposed to help address the challenges faced by Indigenous communities in Nunavut. Someone joined CBC's Peter Duck on Windsor Morning to explain.
So the way it works, vertical farming uses shelving, so there might be stacked shelving or just one layer of shelving. You set up a plumbing system for the irrigation, the watering, and then using grow lights, that's how you get your artificial sunlight in a way. And then regulated temperature, humidity, you use sensors for all that, and then the container would be insulated. So you basically have a makeshift, ideal situation for farming. The community up there is very happy with the system. They've been growing crops and it's been working effectively.
Really? What do you know what they've grown up there?
I'm pretty sure it was lettuce, maybe strawberries, and I'm pretty sure bell peppers. I didn't expect it to go this far, to be honest. It's life-changing for people up there in that community, and it's nice to know that you've made an impact on people who they can't grow anything, so the food coming in is going to be it's already gone bad most of the time, and it's overpriced. So the fact that they have fresh food, it's just it's good to know.
A positive but somewhat chilly endeavor, perhaps. A creature not often spotted on the Canadian side of the border has traveled a long way to reach Essex County, which has birders now doing the same. They're trying to catch a glimpse of the swallow-tailed kite. It's been spotted in LaSalle near the Valmer complex off Laurier Parkway, but it's normally seen way further south.
Here it comes towards us right now. Beautiful. That's probably about as close as I've seen it. What we're looking at is a swallow-tailed kite, reputed to be one of the most beautiful raptors in North America. It is typically a southeast United States bird, so Florida, Louisiana, usually in swampy areas, probably blown up here on a storm or some weather event. It has been here since Tuesday in LaSalle, right off the Laurier Parkway. Local birders, and in fact birders from Toronto and other parts of Ontario, have been flocking in to see it. These birds typically eat a lot of insects, so things like grasshoppers, which is probably what it's pulling off the soybeans here. This is the first time I saw it was yesterday. And as I said, it really has created quite a stir. A lot of people are coming and looking.
We're from Sombra, and I follow the Ontario Birds page on Facebook, and I saw it on there. So thought we'd come down and check it out. So we just had a really great flyby, gave us lots of opportunity for great pictures.
Just excellent. There we go. Oh, there it is.
Well, some beautiful footage there. Taking a look now at the tower cam. Soak up that beautiful weather now because we're in for a bit of rain this evening. We have more on your forecast coming up after the break. Colette, I feel so lucky to be located here on the Detroit River. And if I can, I try and take my lunch break down by the water there. And boy, was it beautiful today. One of those days that makes you sad that the summer is kind of coming to an end.
Yes, the summer maybe, but you know what? The summer-like weather is maybe only just ramping up in terms of what we're going to experience. We just have a little blip, which a trough that is going through for tonight that I'll tell you all about. But I also have to tell you about what's happening here in the tropics. We know we still have Hurricane Franklin, but Idalia has strengthened to a Category 2 storm here just off the coast of Florida, and likely because of the warmth of these waters providing a lot of fuel. But not only that, the fact that there doesn't seem to be much wind shear in the atmosphere, it's going to allow this to likely continue to strengthen up to a Category 3, and it's quite possible the National Hurricane Center thinks that the wind speeds could be just over or around 200 kilometers an hour as it makes landfall, that occurring overnight tonight, so in the wee hours of Wednesday morning. And then you see it'll make haste. But the biggest issue here is going to be that storm surge. So there are certainly hurricane warnings all along everything here in red and inland too, and then tropical storm warnings along the outside. But the storm surge, that possibility, although it's a little bit lower population here, but in this Big Bend area, 10 to 15 feet. And storm surge is the #1 reason for loss of life or property from hurricanes. So watching this so carefully. Even though an eye wall is not yet evident, the hurricane hunters who have been flying in are seeing that projections are coming for that it is developing. So we look at this system here, and you know, this is actually, once it goes through, going to kind of help to push any of the remnants from Hurricane Idalia away from us. So instead, we'll get into more summer-like weather. Now, there are some heavier bands in here with some of this lightning. You can see all these strikes. So I'd anticipate towards Sarnia some localized heavier amounts of rain up towards the northern edge of this around Georgian Bay too. I think it will be much lesser though through Windsor. As it pushes through into the early morning hours, most of it should be done. Just some isolated showers to the east. Clouds may hang in a little longer before we get those breaking up on Wednesday. Once they do, they really will break up. Ridge of high pressure will build right back in here, and when it does, the sun will return. But there you see a greater amount there for Sarnia, quite possible. I just want you to know and be alert that the winds are going to be stronger, pushing in from the northwest and gusty because of this front going through. So tomorrow, it's kind of one day only. It's going to have a cooler feel. This is the current temperature. Our highs are going to struggle tomorrow to get to about 20 degrees. Tonight, 13. A few embedded thunderstorms, 15 in the morning, and then that daytime high, I'm putting us at 20, but with those gusty winds from the northwest, and then it's after that. We're really going to see that climb in temperatures. Humidity, Meg, will be climbing too as we head towards the holiday weekend.
Well, you said, Colette, a little windy for us, but I'm sure it's nothing comparable to, parts of Florida, 200-kilometer winds.
Yeah, they've really, the next 24 hours are going to be so important. And luckily, I think, folks are doing a good job of evacuating what they need to do. Let's hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
Well, it's an exciting day if you're a hockey fan. We've got the details on a long-awaited new league. Well, here's a rather unpleasant story. Doctors in Australia are revealing today that they found a live worm in a patient's brain. Here's the reaction from a physician called in to help last year when a neurosurgeon made the discovery.
Something this large, 8 centimeters, and wriggling around, and something that had never before been seen in a human being, was certainly something we'll never forget.
The worm was in the brain of a 64-year-old who'd been suffering from memory loss and depression. This kind of worm is usually found in pythons. The patient received treatment and went back home. Doctors say they're keeping a close eye on her. Well, it's been a long time coming, but you can get ready to watch professional women's hockey early next year. Today, the newly formed PWHL announced 6 franchises. Teams will be in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, New York, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Boston. Here's how it will work.
Well, as of September 10th, we'll have 18 players that will be assigned to the 6 teams, 3 per team. And then following that, every other player will enter the draft. When the draft occurs on September 18th, we'll go through 15 rounds of a draft. So at that point, all 6 teams will have 18 players on their roster. For all players that don't get drafted on the 18th, they ultimately will become free agents.
Training camps will start in November. The season is expected to start in January, and some of those games may be in cities other than the 6 franchise locations. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.